How pathetic. Senior Chief Marcus Webb's voice cut through the morning formation like a blade. He stood 3 inches from Elena Reyes's face, his breath hot against her skin. 20 years old, no combat deployment, no legacy, just a psychology degree and the delusion that you belong here. He turned to the platoon. Gentlemen, meet our mascot, political correctness wrapped in a uniform. 32 men laughed. Elena didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stood there with eyes that promised something Webb couldn't understand yet. 6 weeks later, Commander Elias Stone would slide a classified file across his desk and everything would change. Now, before we show you what happened next and how the entire unit responded once the truth came out, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tap the bell icon. Because what she proved over those 6 weeks didn't come from anger or argument. It came from silence and the discipline to let the facts do the damage. The laughter hadn't stopped echoing when Elena felt a glob of spit hit the back of her neck. She didn't turn around, didn't wipe it off, just kept her eyes fixed on the flagpole ahead while 32 candidates watched to see if she'd break. Welcome to Naval Special Warfare Training Center, Captain Reyes. Webb circled her like a predator assessing wounded prey. I've been running this assessment program for 15 years, seen hundreds of candidates, Rangers, Raiders, Force Recon, the best our military has to offer. He stopped directly in front of her. Not one of them was a 20-year-old girl with a clipboard and a theory about cognitive warfare integration. He made air quotes with his fingers. You know what we call that here? We call it getting good men killed. Elena's voice came out steady, flat, like she was reading a weather report. Permission to speak, Senior Chief. Oh, this should be good. Webb crossed his arms. Go ahead, sweetheart. Enlighten us. I'm not here to replace operators, Senior Chief. I'm here to make them more effective. Behavioral analysis, pattern recognition, predicting enemy responses before they happen. That's what the cognitive integration program. The what? Webb leaned in closer. Did you just use 3 words that weren't yes, Senior Chief, or I quit? I'm explaining my role in your role. Webb's voice dropped to something dangerous. Let me explain your role, Captain. Your role is to prove that integration with support specialists is a disaster waiting to happen. Your role is to demonstrate exactly why we've kept our teams pure for 50 years. Your role is to wash out in week 1, so I can send your failure report to JSOC and end this ridiculous experiment permanently. He jabbed a finger at her chest. That's your role. Are we clear? Elena held his gaze. Crystal clear, Senior Chief. Outstanding. Webb stepped back, addressed the formation. Gentlemen, Captain Reyes will be joining Team 7 under Chief Instructor Callahan. I want you all to make her feel welcome. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Very welcome. Chief Instructor Ryan Callahan was waiting at the Team 7 barracks. 34 years old, built like a tank wrapped in tactical gear with a shaved head and the kind of permanent scowl that suggested smiling might physically hurt him. You're late, he said when Elena approached. Senior Chief Webb extended his welcome, Chief. I'm sure he did. Callahan looked her up and down like he was inspecting defective equipment. Listen carefully, Captain, because I'm only saying this once. I don't care about your degrees. I don't care about your theories. I don't care about whatever political nonsense got you assigned here. In my team, you perform or you're gone. No special treatment, no accommodations, no excuses. I'm not asking for any, Chief. Good, because you're not getting any. He handed her a training schedule. Physical assessment tomorrow, 0500. Obstacle course. Standard time is 8 minutes. Anything over, you're marked for remedial conditioning. Don't be late again. Elena took the schedule. Understood, Chief. Callahan was already walking away. Your bunk is the one by the latrine. Seemed fitting. The barracks smelled like old sweat and testosterone. Elena found her assigned bunk the worst location possible next to the bathroom, where every flush and every 3 a.m. trip would wake her up. The mattress was thinner than the others. The sheets hadn't been washed. Small things. Designed to erode. Designed to make her quit before the real testing even started. She dropped her duffel, pulled out a waterproof field notebook, and sat on the edge of the bunk. Day 1, she wrote. Assigned Team 7. Senior Chief Webb publicly hostile. Chief Callahan complicit. Bunk location designed to disrupt sleep. Documentation begins. A shadow fell across her notebook. You're the psychology girl. Elena looked up. A massive operator stood over her, easily 6'4", 250 pounds of muscle that looked like it had been carved from granite. His dog tags identified him as Specialist Thomas Reeves. That's what they're calling me, Elena said. I heard what Webb said at formation. Reeves shifted uncomfortably. That was rough, even by his standards. I've heard worse. Yeah. Reeves sat on the bunk across from her, which creaked under his weight. Where? Elena closed her notebook. Doesn't matter. I'm here now. Reeves studied her for a moment. Something in his expression suggested he was running his own assessment and coming up with different results than Webb's. Listen, I don't know you, don't know what you're capable of. But I've been through 3 selection programs and I know what sabotage looks like. He lowered his voice. Watch your back. Webb's got a history. Candidates he doesn't like tend to have accidents during training. Nothing provable, just enough to wash them out. Why are you telling me this? Reeves stood up. Because I grew up watching my mother get passed over for promotions she deserved because the guys in charge couldn't handle being outsmarted by a woman, and I swore I'd never be one of those guys. He walked toward the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I read your file. Your academic file, I mean. That pattern recognition work you did at Annapolis was impressive. Identified 3 security vulnerabilities the Navy's own analysts missed. Elena's eyes narrowed. That file is classified. Is it? Reeves smiled slightly. Huh. Must have gotten my information somewhere else then. He left before she could ask more questions. The obstacle course loomed in the pre-dawn darkness like a monument to suffering. Elena had been awake since 0400, preparing her body and her mind for what she knew was coming. Not just the physical challenge she'd trained for that. The sabotage. The manufactured failure. The trap that was already being set. 17 candidates lined up at the starting line. Elena drew the 8th position. Standard time is 8 minutes, Callahan announced. Anything over is remedial. Anything under 7 is exceptional. We've had 3 exceptional times in the past year. All of them SEALs. Webb stood nearby with a clipboard watching waiting. The first candidate ran. 7 minutes 42 seconds. Clean efficient. The second. 8 minutes 11 seconds. Marked for remedial. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Reyes, you're up. Elena stepped to the line. Callahan's stopwatch glinted in the first light of dawn. Remember. Webb called out loud enough for everyone to hear, we're testing for sustainable operational pace, not just speed. Burning out before the mission ends gets your teammates killed. Keep that in mind. The whistle blew. Elena exploded forward. Rope climb she moved with economy, no wasted motion feet, finding purchase arms pulling with controlled power. Wall traverse hand over hand, core engaged breathing steady. Low crawl sand and rocks scraping beneath her as she kept her body flat under the barbed wire. Monkey bars over the mud pit grip swing release. Catch forward momentum maintained. The incline 40 degrees of resistance, every muscle screaming, but she didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction. She crossed the finish line. Callahan checked his stopwatch. His jaw tightened. Time? Webb asked. 7 minutes, 12 seconds. Elena stood there, chest heaving, sweat dripping, but standing. 48 seconds under standard. Better than most of the candidates who'd gone before her. Webb walked over slowly. Studied the stopwatch. Made a note on his clipboard. Captain Reyes, you're marked for remedial conditioning. Elena's breathing was still ragged, but her voice came out steady. On what grounds, Senior Chief? The standard is 8 minutes. I finished in 7:12. The standard is sustainable pace, Captain. You push too hard, burn too much energy. In a sustained operation, that kind of expenditure would compromise your team. Webb made another note. Remedial conditioning. Report at 1800 hours. From somewhere in the formation, Elena heard a low mutter. That's garbage. Webb's head snapped toward the sound. Someone have something to say. Silence. That's what I thought. Elena walked back to the formation. Her face was blank controlled, but her hand slipped into her pocket, found her notebook. She'd write it down later. Every detail, every discrepancy, every witness. Day 2. Obstacle course. Actual time 7:12. Standard 8:00. Marked as failure. Reason given, unsustainable pace. No such criterion in training manual. The evidence was starting to accumulate. The close quarters battle assessment came on day 8. 6 rooms, 12 targets mixed with 4 civilian role players. Standard was clear. Room-by-room progression, 0 civilian casualties, at least 10 hostile eliminations in under 5 minutes. Elena ran it clean. First room, 2 hostiles neutralized with controlled pairs. Second room, civilian role player behind a desk. She identified, called it, moved past without engaging. Third room, hostile behind a hostage. Tight angle. Maybe 6 inches of clearance. She took the shot. Clean headshot. The hostage role player didn't flinch. Rooms 4 through 6, textbook execution. Every hostile down. Every civilian untouched. Final time, 4 minutes 38 seconds. When she exited, Callahan was waiting with his clipboard. Room 3, he said. You hesitated before taking the shot. I confirmed the target, Chief. That's protocol. Protocol is one thing. Combat effectiveness is another. Callahan made a mark, marked as hesitation under pressure. Elena's hands curled into fists at her sides, but her voice stayed level. Chief, I eliminated 12 hostiles in 4:38 with 0 civilian casualties. My shot placement was accurate within. Your evaluation stands, Captain. Callahan looked up from his clipboard. Unless you're questioning my assessment authority. No, Chief. Good. Dismissed. That night, Elena wrote Day 8. CQB assessment. 12 hostiles eliminated. 0 civilian casualties. Time 4:38. Marked as hesitation under pressure. Actual target confirmation per ROE. By the end of week 2, Elena had been failed on 7 separate drills. Breacher training, clean breach, minimal scarring on doorframe. Marked as excessive charge placement. Tactical navigation completed 15 minutes under standard. Marked as insufficient route verification. Combat medicine stabilized simulated casualty in under 3 minutes. Marked as improper triage prioritization. Each failure was documented in Callahan's official evaluation forms with language that sounded technical and professional but meant nothing. Each failure was logged in Elena's notebook with timestamps, witness names, and factual descriptions of what actually happened. Petty Officer Dante Morrison approached her after the tactical navigation drill. You're documenting everything, aren't you? Elena didn't look up from her notebook. Documenting what? Morrison sat down beside her. 28 years old, African-American, with the kind of quiet intensity that suggested he'd seen things he didn't talk about. I know what sabotage looks like, Captain. Experienced it myself when I first came through. Different reasons, same playbook. He lowered his voice. They failed me on 7 drills during my first selection. Called me aggressive when I performed well. Called me hesitant when I was careful. Couldn't win either way. What changed? I had a senior chief who believed in me. Called out the evaluators. Got the review board involved. Morrison paused. But I also had evidence. Documented everything. Times, names, discrepancies. When the board saw the pattern, they couldn't ignore it. Elena finally looked at him. Why are you telling me this? Because Webb's running the same playbook on you that they ran on me. And because I'm not going to pretend I don't see it. He stood up. For what it's worth, you're outperforming half the candidates in this cycle. The failures don't match the performance. Anyone with eyes can see that. Anyone willing to look. Morrison nodded slowly. That's the trick, isn't it? Finding people willing to look. He started walking away, then stopped. Keep documenting, Captain. And if you ever need a witness statement, you know where to find me. Week 3 brought someone Elena hadn't expected. Lieutenant Amy Chen was the only female SEAL officer on base. 32 years old, compact and precise, with the kind of presence that suggested she'd earned every inch of respect she commanded. She found Elena at the range after hours practicing shot groupings with a sidearm. Captain Reyes. Elena lowered her weapon. Lieutenant Chen. I've been watching your assessments. Chen leaned against the range partition. You're good. Better than good. Your combat instincts are solid, your tactical decision-making is sound, and your psychological assessments of the role players have been eerily accurate. Thank you, ma'am. I'm not finished. Chen's expression hardened. I've also been watching your evaluation scores. They don't match what I'm seeing in the field, not even close. Elena said nothing, waited. I know what Webb is doing, Chen continued. I went through something similar when I was coming up. Different era, same resistance. The men who couldn't accept that a woman might be their equal found ways to sabotage, to undermine, to create failure conditions that didn't exist in any training manual. What did you do, ma'am? I documented everything, every discrepancy, every fabricated failure. And when I had enough evidence, I took it to someone with the authority to act. Chen paused. But here's what I learned: evidence alone isn't enough. You need someone willing to listen. Someone with enough power to override the saboteurs and enough integrity to care about the truth. And did you find someone like that? Chen's expression flickered with something that might have been old pain. Eventually, after a lot of damage was already done. She pushed off the partition. I'm not in a position to intervene directly. Webb has seniority, and any action from me would be dismissed as women protecting women. But I want you to know you're not alone. And when the time comes, and it will come, I'll be ready to corroborate what you've documented. Why would you take that risk for me, ma'am? Chen smiled, but there was steel behind it. Because I remember what it felt like to be in your position, and because the only way we break this cycle is by refusing to let them win. She walked away without looking back. That night, Elena added to her notebook, Allie identified LT Amy Chen. Willing to corroborate when review board convenes. Pattern emerging. Evidence accumulating. Continue documentation. The 4th week started with a revelation that changed everything. Elena was running her standard pre-dawn training routine, additional conditioning she'd designed for herself to stay ahead of whatever obstacles Webb would manufacture next when she noticed something. A figure on the observation tower. Someone was watching. Had been watching, she realized, for days. Maybe longer. She couldn't make out the face in the darkness. But the silhouette suggested authority, rank, the kind of presence that didn't need to announce itself. The figure disappeared before sunrise. Elena filed the observation away, added it to her mental catalog of things that didn't quite add up. Later that morning, during a tactical briefing, she overheard Webb and Callahan in the adjacent room. Their voices were low, but Elena's hearing was sharp. One of the benefits of training her senses to detect threats before they became obvious. She should have quit by now. That was Webb. Every other candidate I've pushed this hard either broke or walked away. What the hell is wrong with her? Maybe she's tougher than you thought. Callahan's voice was flat. Or maybe she's building something. Documentation. Evidence. Evidence of what every failure is supported by training criteria. Criteria you invented, Senior Chief. The review board. The review board sees what I tell them to see. I've been doing this for 15 years. They trust my evaluations. And if someone higher up starts asking questions, silence. Then Webb's voice harder now. No one's asking questions. And even if they did, it's her word against mine, against ours. Who do you think they're going to believe, a 20-year-old girl with a psychology degree or two, decorated special operations instructors with 30 years of combined experience? I'm just saying, Senior Chief, if this blows up, it won't blow up, because she's going to wash out, one way or another. Webb's footsteps moved toward the door. The trust drill is scheduled for week 5. Make sure she's paired with Brandt. The conversation ended. Elena stood perfectly still, processing what she'd heard. Week 5. Trust drill. Brandt. She'd watched Specialist Kyle Brandt during training. 6'3", 230 pounds, with the kind of aggression that bordered on uncontrolled. He was Webb's most loyal follower, the candidate who laughed loudest at Webb's jokes and volunteered first for the dirtiest details. The trust drill was supposed to be controlled. Defensive techniques only. Safety observers present. But Elena knew better now. The trap was already being set. She had less than a week to prepare. That night, Elena didn't sleep. Instead, she sat on her bunk with her notebook open, mapping out everything she'd observed over the past 4 weeks. The pattern was clear. Webb wasn't just failing her randomly. He was building toward something. A final confrontation designed to end her candidacy permanently. The fabricated failures. The isolation from other candidates. The escalating hostility. It was all leading to a moment when he could claim she'd done something unforgivable, assault insubordination, psychological instability, and use that claim to remove her from the program with prejudice. She needed evidence he couldn't dismiss. Documentation he couldn't override. Witnesses he couldn't silence. And she needed something else. She needed to know why. Webb's hatred wasn't just institutional resistance. It was personal, specific, targeted in ways that suggested something deeper than ideology. Elena closed her notebook and pulled out her laptop. If she was going to survive what was coming, she needed to understand the man trying to destroy her. She started digging. The classified files weren't easy to access. But Elena had spent 3 years learning how information systems worked, how security protocols functioned, how digital trails could be traced and analyzed. She didn't hack anything. That would be illegal. Instead, she found the publicly available records, news articles, after-action reports that had been declassified, veteran memorial pages, and pieced together a picture. Marcus Webb had been a rising star in the special operations community. 22 years old when he'd earned his trident. Assigned to SEAL Team 4 out of Virginia Beach. Deployed to multiple combat zones with distinction. Then came the mission that changed everything. Elena found the article in a military history archive. Operation Silent Thunder 2004. A joint operation involving SEALs, Army Rangers, and a CIA intelligence team. The mission was supposed to capture a high-value target in Yemen. Instead, it had gone catastrophically wrong. The intelligence team had identified the correct location, had warned that the target was expecting them, had recommended a different approach. The team leader had overruled them. 6 men died that night, including Marcus Webb's younger brother, Petty Officer 2nd Class Daniel Webb, age 20. Elena stared at the screen. The pieces were falling into place. Webb hadn't always hated integration. He'd participated in joint operations willingly until the day a decision he made got his brother killed. And for 20 years he'd blamed the intelligence team. Blamed the support specialists who'd tried to warn him. Blamed everyone except himself. Elena was his chance at redemption. Not by helping her succeed, but by proving she would fail. By demonstrating that integration was inherently dangerous. by validating the narrative he'd constructed to protect himself from the unbearable truth. If she failed, he was right. His brother's death wasn't his fault. If she succeeded, everything he'd believed for 2 decades was a lie. No wonder he wanted her destroyed. Elena closed her laptop and looked at her notebook. She understood now. Understanding didn't change what she had to do, but it changed how she thought about the man she was fighting. Webb wasn't evil. He was broken, traumatized, trapped in a prison of his own guilt. That didn't make his sabotage acceptable. It didn't make his campaign to destroy her forgivable. But it meant she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting to prove something that might eventually help him face the truth he'd been running from for 20 years. Integration hadn't killed his brother. His own arrogance had. And until he accepted that he would keep trying to destroy everyone who reminded him of what he'd done. The morning of day 27 arrived with a message that changed everything. Elena was doing her pre-dawn conditioning when a figure approached through the darkness. Not one of the candidates. Not Callahan or Webb. Someone older, more authoritative, moving with the kind of controlled precision that suggested decades of operational experience. He stopped 10 feet away and waited. Elena lowered her weights. "Can I help you, sir?" "Captain Reyes." His voice was calm, measured, the kind of voice that didn't need to raise itself to command attention. "I'm Commander Elias Stone. I've been watching your assessments." Elena's heart rate spiked, but she kept her voice level. "Yes, sir. I've noticed the figure on the observation tower." Stone's eyebrow raised slightly. "Good situational awareness. Most candidates never look up." "Most candidates aren't being systematically sabotaged by their instructors, sir." "No," Stone agreed. "They're not." He stepped closer. In the growing light, Elena could see his face more clearly. 51 years old, weathered but sharp, with eyes that suggested he'd seen more than he'd ever talk about. "I've reviewed your actual performance metrics. Timing data from the automated systems. Helmet camera footage from other candidates. Your psychological assessments of the role players." He paused. "You're exceptional, Captain. One of the most capable candidates I've seen in 15 years. "Thank you, sir." "I'm not finished." Stone's expression hardened. "I've also reviewed Senior Chief Webb's evaluation forms. The discrepancies are significant. The pattern is clear." "Why haven't you intervened, sir?" "Because intervention would have invalidated everything you've accomplished." Stone's voice carried something that might have been respect. "If I'd stepped in on day 1, they would have claimed you got special treatment, that you didn't earn your position. That integration only works when it's propped up by political favoritism." He met her eyes. "You needed to prove it undeniably, to accumulate evidence that couldn't be dismissed, to demonstrate competence so consistent that even fabricated failures couldn't explain it away. So you let me suffer for 4 weeks as a test. I let you build your case for 4 weeks. There's a difference." Stone glanced toward the training compound. "The trust drill is scheduled for tomorrow. I know what Webb has planned. Brandt as your partner. No safety observers. A situation engineered to make you either submit to assault or defend yourself and be accused of excessive force." Elena's jaw tightened. "You know about that?" "I know everything that happens on this base, Captain. That's my job." He pulled something from his pocket. A business card with a single location written on it. "Tomorrow, 0430, Training Base 7. Come alone. What happens there will determine everything that comes after." Elena took the card. "What should I expect, sir?" "Expect to be tested, really tested. Not the manufactured failures Webb has been throwing at you, but an actual assessment of what you're capable of." Stone started walking away, then stopped. "And Captain, bring your notebook. You're going to want to document what happens next." He disappeared into the darkness. Elena stood alone in the growing light, the card in her hand, her heart pounding with something that wasn't quite fear. It was anticipation. The game was about to change. Training Bay 7 was empty when Elena arrived at 0428. 2 minutes later, Commander Stone emerged from the shadows like he'd been carved from the darkness itself. He carried a duffel bag in one hand and a manila folder in the other. "You're early," he said. "I don't believe in late, sir." Stone set the duffel down. "Good. Because what we're about to do doesn't officially exist. No documentation, no witnesses, no record that this training ever happened." "Then why do it, sir?" "Because Webb is going to try to destroy you tomorrow, and I need to know if you can survive what's coming." He unzipped the duffel, pulled out a modified M4. "This isn't simulation ammunition. This is live fire. Real consequences. The kind of training we give operators before we send them into situations where hesitation means body bags." Elena took the weapon, checked the chamber. Safety. Sling tension. Her hands moved with the automatic precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Stone watched her every movement. "You handle weapons like someone with combat experience, but your official record shows 0 deployments." "My official record shows what it's supposed to show, sir." "And what doesn't it show?" Elena met his eyes. The question hung between them like a challenge. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted." "Why are you really helping me? You're the senior commander on this base. You could shut Webb down with a single order. Instead, you're running secret training sessions at EO 430 and asking questions about classified records." Stone's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Because I knew your father." Elena's hands tightened on the rifle. "James Reyes, cultural attaché at the American Embassy in Yemen. That's what his official record showed." Stone paused. But his real job was running intelligence networks for the CIA, building relationships with local assets, identifying threats before they became operations. "How do you know that?" "Because I was the SEAL team leader who worked with him. Operation Silent Thunder 2004. Your father identified the target location, warned us about the ambush, recommended a different approach." Stone's voice hardened. "And I ignored him." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. "You were there." "I was there. 22 years old. Arrogant. Convinced that combat operators knew better than intelligence analysts." Stone's jaw tightened. "Your father died because I overruled his warning. 6 men died that night, including my best friend's younger brother. Webb's brother. Daniel Webb, 20 years old, first deployment." Stone closed his eyes for a moment. "Marcus and I were supposed to protect him. Instead, we walked into an ambush that your father saw coming." Elena's mind was racing, processing, connecting dots she hadn't known existed. Webb blames the intelligence team for his brother's death. Webb blames everyone except himself, because accepting responsibility would mean facing the fact that his brother died because of his arrogance and mine. Stone opened his eyes. "I've spent 20 years trying to make it right. Building integration programs, proving that operators and analysts working together saves lives. But Webb went the other direction. He buried his guilt in doctrine, convinced himself that keeping branches separate was the solution. And I represent everything he's been running from. You're the daughter of the man whose warning he ignored. If you succeed, it proves he was wrong. About integration. About your father. About the decision that got his brother killed." Stone's voice dropped. "That's why he's trying to destroy you. It's not about you, it's about him." Elena stood perfectly still. The weight of what she'd just learned pressed down on her like physical force. Her father hadn't just died in a bombing. He'd been murdered by friendly arrogance, by the same attitude Webb was now using to sabotage her. "Why are you telling me this, sir?" "Because you deserve to know, and because understanding your enemy is the first step to defeating him." Stone picked up the manila folder. "But there's something else. Something that changes everything." He handed her the folder. Elena opened it, read the first page. Her breath caught. "This is impossible. It's classified, has been for 20 years, but it's real. The folder contained an after-action report from Operation Silent Thunder. Not the official version, the classified version that had never been released. And according to this report, James Reyes hadn't just warned about the ambush. He'd identified the source of the leak. Someone on the American side had sold the mission details to the enemy. Someone with access to operational planning. Someone who'd known exactly when and where the SEAL team would be vulnerable. The investigation had been shut down before the traitor could be identified, classified, buried, forgotten. "There was a mole," Elena whispered. "There was a mole. And your father was killed before he could expose them." Stone's expression was granite. "I've spent 20 years trying to find out who it was, never had enough evidence. But 3 months ago I received an anonymous tip." What kind of tip? The kind that suggested someone on this base knows more than they're saying. Someone who was connected to the original operation. Someone who's been hiding in plain sight for 2 decades. Elena looked up from the folder. "You think the traitor is here, at Naval Special Warfare Training Center. I think someone who knows the truth is here. And I think your presence, your father's daughter proving that integration works, is making them nervous." Stone took back the folder. "That's the other reason I've been watching you. Not just to document Webb's sabotage, but to see who else is watching. Who else seems too interested in making sure you fail." The implications crashed over Elena like a wave. This wasn't just about institutional bias anymore. This wasn't just about Webb's trauma or Callahan's complicity. There might be someone on this base who'd helped kill her father. Someone who needed her to fail, not just to validate their prejudices, but to protect their secrets. "What do you want me to do, sir?" Stone's answer was immediate. "Survive, pass the assessment, prove yourself beyond any possible doubt. And while you're doing that, keep your eyes open. Someone is going to make a mistake. Someone is going to reveal themselves. And when they do, we'll finally know who killed your father." The first rays of sunlight were breaking over the horizon. Time was running out. "We have 2 hours before official training begins," Stone said. "Let's see what you're really made of." He gestured toward the shoot house. 6 rooms, 18 targets, live ammunition, no safety observers, no second chances. His eyes met hers. "Show me the operator your father would have wanted you to become." Elena moved to the entry point, raised her weapon, let her breathing settle. This wasn't about proving herself to Webb anymore. This was about justice. For her father. For the 6 men who'd died in Yemen. For the truth that had been buried for 20 years. The buzzer sounded. She breached. The next 90 minutes redefined everything Elena thought she knew about her own capabilities. Stone pushed her through scenarios that made Webb's fabricated failures look like children's games. Room-to-room combat with moving targets. Hostage situations with split-second decision windows. Low-light engagements where the difference between friendly and hostile was measured in milliseconds. She cleared every room, neutralized every threat, made every shot count. When she finished the final scenario, Stone checked his stopwatch. For the first time since she'd met him, something that might have been approval flickered across his face. "Your father would be proud." Elena ejected her magazine. "My father is dead because someone on our side betrayed him." "Yes, and you're going to help me find out who." Stone took the weapon from her hands. "But first, you have to survive the trust drill. Webb has it scheduled for 1400 hours. Brandt is your assigned partner. No safety observers are listed." "I heard their conversation. They're expecting me to either submit to assault or defend myself and be accused of excessive force." "Exactly. It's a trap with no good options." Stone paused. "Unless you create a third option." "What kind of third option?" "The kind where you document everything so thoroughly that even Webb can't spin the narrative." He pulled a small device from his pocket. "Body camera. Experimental model. Looks like a standard uniform button. Records high-definition video and audio." Elena took the device. It was lighter than she expected, smaller. This is illegal without the other party's consent. This is evidence collection in a hostile environment. And when the review board sees what actually happened versus what Webb claims happened, they'll be very interested in the discrepancies. Stone met her eyes. The question is whether you're willing to take the risk. Elena thought about her father, about the 20 years of buried truth, about the traitor who might still be walking these halls. I'll take the risk. Good. Report to the trust drill at 1400. Let Brandt do whatever he's going to do. Defend yourself only when necessary, and when it's over, bring me the footage. And then, Stone's expression hardened. Then we find out who really runs this base. The official training day started at 700. Elena arrived at formation with the body camera concealed in her uniform and her notebook in her cargo pocket. Webb stood at the front of the formation with his clipboard. His eyes found her immediately. Captain Reyes, you look tired. Late night. Early morning, Senior Chief. Extra conditioning. Is that so? Webb's smile was cold. I admire dedication, even when it's pointless. Callahan appeared beside him. Today's schedule tactical planning assessment at 0800 physical stress test at 1000 and weapons retention drill at 1400. Weapons retention drill. The trust drill. The trap. Elena's pulse didn't change. Her expression didn't flicker. Understood, Chief. The morning assessments followed the pattern Elena had come to expect. She performed well exceeded standards on tactical planning, completed the stress test in the top 3, and was failed on technicalities that didn't exist in any training manual. Insufficient consideration of alternative approaches, Callahan wrote after the tactical planning session. Excessive competitive drive, he noted after the stress test. Elena documented everything: times, scores, discrepancies, witnesses. Morrison caught her eye during the lunch break. His expression said he'd noticed the pattern too. You ready for this afternoon? He asked quietly. I'm ready. Brandt's been talking, says Webb gave him special instructions. Morrison lowered his voice. Said he's supposed to test your limits, whatever that means. I know what it means. You going to be okay? Elena met his eyes. I'm going to be fine. And when this is over, I'm going to need you to remember exactly what you saw. Morrison nodded slowly. I'll remember. At 1345, Elena walked toward the training compound where the weapons retention drill was scheduled. Specialist Reeves intercepted her halfway there. Captain, got a minute? I have 15 minutes before the drill specialist. That's what I want to talk about. Reeves glanced around, making sure no one was close enough to hear. I overheard Callahan on the phone this morning. He was talking to someone, couldn't tell who, about the trust drill. What did he say? Said the plan was solid. That by 1500, you'd be off the program with a formal complaint against you. Something about assault charges. Elena's jaw tightened. They're planning to provoke me into defending myself, then claim I attacked Brandt. That's what it sounded like. Reeves hesitated. Listen, I don't know you well, but I know what's right and what's wrong. And this is wrong. What are you willing to do about it, Specialist? Reeves straightened. I'm willing to be wherever I need to be at 1400. And I'm willing to tell the truth about what I see. Even if it means going against Webb and Callahan. Even if. Elena studied him for a moment. Then she nodded. Training compound, 1400. Don't be late. The weapons retention drill took place on a sand-covered training pad. Elena arrived at 1358 to find Brandt already waiting. He was doing stretches that looked more like intimidation tactics, rolling his massive shoulders, cracking his knuckles, bouncing on his feet like a fighter warming up for a match. Webb and Callahan stood at the edge of the pad. No safety observers, no medical personnel. Just two evaluators with clipboards and expressions that suggested they already knew how this was going to end. Captain Reyes. Webb's voice carried across the sand. You're familiar with the weapons retention protocol. Yes, Senior Chief. Then you know the rules. Defensive techniques only. Your partner will attempt to disarm you. You will maintain control of your weapon using approved methods. Webb paused. Specialist Brandt, you understand the protocol. Yes, Senior Chief. Then begin. Brandt moved in immediately. Not testing, not probing. Full aggression from the first second. His first strike hit Elena's ribs. Hard. Not simulated real force designed to hurt, to break, to make her react. She absorbed it. Didn't retaliate. Didn't escalate. Protocol said defensive response after 3 contacts. That was 1. Brandt circled. His eyes were predatory now. He was enjoying this. The second strike came faster, a shoulder check that snapped her head back and threw her balance. She recovered, maintained her stance, kept her weapon close. 2. Come on, Captain. Brandt's voice was low enough that only she could hear. Fight back. Everyone's watching. Show them what you're really made of. He grabbed her rifle sling with both hands. Twisted. The strap dug into her collarbone, then her neck. He jerked upward, lifting her partially off the ground. Her air cut off. 3. Elena's training kicked in. Not the official training, the classified training. The kind that lived in muscle memory instead of conscious thought. Left arm across his elbow. Break the grip structure. Right foot behind his lead leg. Hip rotation to redirect momentum. She didn't strike, didn't kick. Just used physics. Brandt stumbled backward. Not hurt. Not injured, just neutralized. But the moment he caught his balance, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "She attacked me! She went live!" Callahan moved before the echo faded. Halt the drill. Elena stood perfectly still, breathing controlled, hands at her sides, rifle still slung, safety still engaged. Webb strode into the circle. His face was carved from anger and something else, something that looked like triumph. Captain Reyes, you just initiated an unapproved escalation of force during a trust evaluation. That's assault under training regulations. Article 128. You're finished. Elena's heart was hammering, but her voice came out steady. Senior Chief Specialist Brandt made 3 full contact strikes and lifted me off the ground by my rifle sling. Protocol authorizes defensive response after 3 contacts. I executed a standard redirect. No strikes. No excessive force. You attacked a fellow candidate during a controlled drill. That's not defense, that's aggression. Callahan was already writing, making it official, making it permanent. The formation had gathered at the edges of the circle, 20 candidates watching this play out. Some looked uncomfortable, some looked satisfied. None of them spoke. Strand stood off to the side, rubbing his arm like he'd been injured. The performance was almost convincing. This assessment is built on trust, Webb continued, his voice rising for the audience. Trust that candidates can operate under pressure without compromising their teammates. You just demonstrated you can't be trusted. I'm recommending immediate removal from the program pending formal review board. Elena felt the body camera against her chest. Recording everything. Every word. Every lie. Every fabricated accusation. She was about to respond when a voice cut through from across the compound. Captain Reyes, my office, now. Every head turned. Commander Elias Stone stood near the command building. Behind him, 2 officers in civilian clothes with credentials Elena didn't recognize. Webb's jaw tightened. Commander, this is an assessment matter. I said now, Captain. Stone's tone didn't accommodate argument. Elena unclipped her rifle sling, handed the weapon to the nearest candidate, and walked across the sand. She didn't look back at Webb, didn't try to read the expressions of the men watching her leave. But she heard Morrison's voice as she passed, quiet but clear. About damn time. The walk to Stone's office felt like crossing into a different world. Elena followed him up the stairs past offices where personnel pretended not to notice the tension crackling in the air and into a room that was sparse and functional. Stone closed the door. The 2 civilian officers remained standing near the window. Captain Reyes, I'd like you to meet Colonel Patricia Vance, Joint Special Operations Command Integration Oversight, and Special Agent Marcus Holbrook, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. NCIS. This wasn't just an assessment review anymore. Ma'am, sir. Elena nodded to each of them. Colonel Vance stepped forward. Captain Commander Stone has briefed us on the irregularities in your assessment. We've been monitoring the situation for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, ma'am. Since we received an anonymous tip about systematic evaluation fraud at this facility. Vance's expression was unreadable. Your case isn't unique, Captain, but it's the most documented, and it's given us enough evidence to justify a formal investigation. Agent Holbrook spoke for the first time. We're going to need your notebook, Captain, and any other documentation you've collected. Elena reached into her cargo pocket, pulled out the waterproof field journal. 27 days of meticulous records, times, discrepancies, witnesses, everything. She handed it over. Holbrook flipped through the pages. His eyebrows rose. This is thorough. I had good motivation. Stone pulled something from his desk drawer, the body camera Elena had worn during the trust drill. There's also this. High-definition footage of the entire incident. Brandt's 3 full-force strikes, Webb's false accusation, everything. Holbrook took the camera. This changes things. It changes everything, Vance corrected. Captain Reyes, as of now, your assessment is suspended pending investigation. You are not being removed from the program. You are being protected as a material witness in a fraud investigation. Elena processed that. Witness, investigation. The words carried weight she hadn't expected. What happens to Senior Chief Webb? That depends on what we find. Vance's voice hardened. But based on preliminary evidence, he's facing potential charges ranging from evaluation fraud to conspiracy to obstruct a military training program. And Callahan? Same. Plus potential accessory charges, if we can prove he knew the evaluations were falsified. Elena looked at Stone. Something unspoken passed between them. This was bigger than sabotage now, bigger than Webb's trauma or institutional resistance. There's something else you should know, ma'am. Elena's voice was steady. Commander Stone briefed me on Operation Silent Thunder, the 2004 mission in Yemen, the possibility of a mole. Vance's expression flickered just for a moment, but Elena caught it. You know about that. I know my father identified the leak before he was killed. I know the investigation was shut down before the traitor could be exposed. And I know someone on this base may have been connected to the original operation. Silence filled the room. Holbrook closed his notebook slowly. Captain, who told you about the mole investigation? Commander Stone, sir. All eyes turned to Stone. His expression was granite. I've been investigating this for 20 years, he said quietly. James Reyes was the best intelligence analyst I ever worked with. He deserved better than a buried file and a classified cover-up. Vance studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. We're going to need complete cooperation from everyone in this room. The evaluation fraud case is the door. But what's behind that door? She paused. That's what we're really here to find. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Not relief, the danger was far from over. But something like purpose. Her father had died trying to expose a traitor. 20 years later, his daughter might finally finish what he'd started. What do you need me to do, ma'am? Vance's answer came without hesitation. Go back to training. Act normal. Let Webb and Callahan think they've won. And while they're celebrating, we'll be watching everyone who seems a little too interested in your failure. You want me to be bait. I want you to be the pressure that makes someone crack. Vance's eyes were steel. Can you do that, Captain? Elena thought about her father. About the 6 men who died in Yemen. About the truth that had been buried for 2 decades. Yes, ma'am. I can do that. Good. Vance headed for the door. Then let's go catch a traitor. Elena walked back to the barracks with her hands steady and her mind racing. The investigation was real. The traitor was real. And somewhere on this base, someone was watching her with more than professional interest. Someone who needed her to fail, not just to validate their prejudices, but to protect a 20-year-old secret. Morrison intercepted her near the equipment shed. What happened in there? I can't talk about it. Can't or won't. Elena stopped walking. Looked at him. Really looked at him. Morrison, I need you to trust me. Something bigger is happening here. Bigger than Webb. Bigger than the assessment. And when it comes out, I'm going to need people who can be trusted. Morrison studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. I trust you. But I need to know, are you okay? I'm better than okay. Elena started walking again. I'm exactly where I need to be. The next 3 days passed with a strange tension that only Elena understood. Webb continued his campaign of fabricated failures, but there was something different in his demeanor now. A nervousness that hadn't been there before. He kept checking his phone, kept glancing toward the command building, kept having hushed conversations with Callahan that ended the moment anyone got close enough to hear. Elena documented everything. Times, behaviors, patterns. On day 30, she noticed something that changed the equation entirely. Callahan received a phone call during the morning formation. He stepped away to answer it, and his face went pale. When he returned, his hands were shaking. Everything okay, Chief? Webb asked. Fine. Just fine. Callahan's voice cracked on the second word. That afternoon, Callahan left the base for 3 hours. When he returned, he went straight to his office and locked the door. Elena followed at a distance, watched which building he entered, noted the time. Then she found a quiet corner and pulled out her phone. Commander Stone, I need to see you. Now. Stone met her in Training Bay 7 20 minutes later. What did you find? Callahan. He's spooked about something. Received a phone call this morning that rattled him. Left the base for 3 hours. Came back looking like he'd seen a ghost. Stone's expression sharpened. Did you see who called him? No. But I noticed something else. Elena pulled out her notebook. I've been tracking his behavior patterns for the past 3 days. He's changed his routine. Started taking different routes around the base. Checking his mirrors constantly. Classic counter-surveillance behavior. He's scared of being watched. More than that, he's scared of being caught. Elena flipped to another page. I cross-referenced his personnel file with the Operation Silent Thunder records. Callahan wasn't on the mission, he was too junior, but his father was. Stone went very still. His father. Captain Robert Callahan, logistics officer, handled supply chain and communications for the Yemen theater. Elena met Stone's eyes. He had access to mission planning. He knew when and where the team would be deployed. Robert Callahan died in 2015. Heart attack. Convenient timing, right after Congress started pushing for declassification of certain intelligence failures. Elena closed her notebook. I don't think Ryan Callahan is the traitor, but I think he knows who is, and I think he's been protecting that secret his entire career. Stone stared at her for a long moment. Something shifted behind his eyes. Respect maybe, or the recognition of a kindred spirit. You should have been an intelligence officer. I am an intelligence officer, just not the kind that carries a badge. Stone pulled out his phone. I'm calling Holbrook. This changes the approach. Elena watched him make the call, watched his expression grow more serious as he relayed what she'd discovered. When he hung up, his voice was tight. NCIS is moving up their timeline. They're going to bring Callahan in for questioning tomorrow morning. But they want you to make contact first. What kind of contact? The kind that might make him panic enough to reach out to whoever he's protecting. Stone paused. They want you to confront him. Let him know you're onto something. See how he reacts. That's dangerous. Very. But you're the only one who can do it. You're the threat he's most afraid of. The daughter of the man his father may have helped kill. Elena's jaw tightened. When? Tonight, 2100 hours. His office. The next 8 hours were the longest of Elena's life. She went through the motions of training, completed the drills, absorbed the fabricated failures, documented everything while her mind raced ahead to what was coming. At 20:45, she slipped away from the barracks. Callahan's office was in the administrative building, second floor, third door on the left. The hallway was empty. Most of the staff had gone home hours ago. Elena knocked. "Come in." She opened the door. Callahan looked up from his desk. When he saw who it was, his face went through three emotions in rapid succession: surprise, fear, and something that looked almost like resignation. "Captain Reyes, it's late." "I know." Elena closed the door behind her. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About Operation Silent Thunder." She watched his face carefully. "About your father. About what really happened in Yemen 20 years ago." Callahan's hands clenched on his desk. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Elena moved closer. "Your father was the logistics officer. He had access to mission planning. He knew the team's location and timeline." She paused. "And someone sold that information to the enemy." "You're making accusations you can't support." "I'm not accusing you. I'm telling you that I know, and I'm not the only one." Elena let the words hang. "NCIS has been investigating this base for 3 weeks. They know about the evaluation fraud. They know about Webb's sabotage, and they're very interested in why a chief instructor with a clean record suddenly started acting like a man with something to hide." Callahan's breathing had changed, faster, shallower, the classic physiological response to extreme stress. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." "Then explain it to me." Callahan stared at her. Something was breaking behind his eyes, the wall he'd built to protect himself crumbling under pressure he'd never expected to face. "My father," his voice cracked. "My father made a mistake. One mistake. 20 years ago. He thought he was doing the right thing. Selling mission intel to the enemy was the right thing. He didn't sell it." Callahan's words came faster now, tumbling over each other. He was compromised, blackmailed. They had photos, evidence of an affair that would have destroyed his marriage, his career, everything. He thought if he just gave them one piece of information, they'd leave him alone. But they didn't. No, they came back for more, and more. And by the time he realized what he'd done, it was too late. Callahan's eyes were wet. 6 men died because my father was weak, because he chose his reputation over their lives. Elena felt her heart pounding. This was it. The truth her father had died trying to expose. "And you've been protecting his secret ever since." "I didn't know at first. Not until after he died. I found the letters, the correspondence with his handler. I realized what he'd done, what he'd hidden for a decade." Callahan's voice dropped to a whisper. "I should have turned them over. Should have reported it. But he was my father. And he was already dead. What good would it have done? It would have given closure to the families of the men he killed. It would have honored the analyst who tried to warn them, my father." Callahan flinched like she'd struck him. "I know who your father was. I've always known." His voice was barely audible. "James Reyes identified the leak, warned the team. If they'd listened to him, Daniel Webb would still be alive. Marcus Webb wouldn't have spent 20 years destroying himself and everyone around him." "Webb knows about this." "No." Callahan shook his head. "Webb has no idea. He thinks the intelligence failure was genuine bad information from incompetent analysts. He spent his whole career believing that narrative because it's easier than accepting the truth." "What truth?" "That his brother died because of a traitor wearing an American uniform. That the man responsible was never caught, never punished, never held accountable." Callahan met her eyes. "I've been living with that guilt for 10 years. Watching Webb sabotage every integration candidate, knowing it's all based on a lie. Knowing I could end it with one phone call." "Then why didn't you—" "Because I'm a coward." Callahan's voice broke completely. "Because I loved my father, and I couldn't stand the thought of his name being destroyed. Because I told myself that protecting his memory was more important than the truth." Elena stood very still, processing everything she'd heard. 20 years of buried secrets. A dead traitor who'd never been exposed. A son carrying the weight of his father's sins. "The letters," she said quietly. "The correspondence with his handler. Where are they?" Callahan's eyes widened. "Why?" "Because you're going to turn them over. You're going to tell NCIS everything you just told me. And you're going to help me end all of it. The lies, the sabotage, the 20 years of men like Webb destroying lives based on a false narrative." "I can't do that." "You have to." Elena's voice hardened. "Because if you don't, I'll tell them myself. Everything I just recorded." She pulled back her collar, revealing the body camera, the same model Stone had given her before the trust drill. Callahan's face went white. "You recorded this." "Every word, every confession, every detail about your father's betrayal, and your decade of protecting it." Elena's expression was steel. "The only question now is whether you cooperate willingly, or whether I give this to Colonel Vance and let the investigation run its course without your input." "You'd destroy my career, my family." "Your father destroyed 6 families. My family." Elena's voice cracked just barely, just enough to show the pain underneath the control. "Your father killed my parents. Not directly, but he made it possible. He provided the intelligence that let the enemy set their ambush. He's the reason I grew up without a father." Callahan stared at her. Something in his expression shifted from fear to something that looked almost like relief. "You're right." His voice was quiet now, resigned. "I've been carrying this for too long. It's time." He opened his desk drawer, pulled out a thick manila envelope. "The letters are at my apartment. But this..." He handed her the envelope. "This is the summary I put together after I found them. Names, dates, locations, everything my father was forced to provide." Elena took the envelope. It was heavier than she expected. "And you'll cooperate with NCIS?" "Yes." Callahan's shoulders sagged. "I'll tell them everything. I'll testify if necessary. He paused. "I need you to understand. My father wasn't a monster. He was a man who made a terrible choice under impossible pressure. He regretted it every day until he died." "Regret doesn't bring back the dead." "No, it doesn't." Callahan met her eyes. "But maybe this can. Maybe finally telling the truth can give some peace to the people he hurt." Elena nodded slowly. "That's all I've ever wanted." She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "One more thing. Webb, does he have any idea?" "No, none. He's spent 20 years believing his brother died because of intelligence failure, because analysts like your father weren't trustworthy." Callahan's voice was bitter. "The irony is that your father was the only one who got it right, and my father got him killed for it." The weight of that truth settled over Elena like a physical force. "Webb needs to know. Not from me, from you. He deserves to hear the truth from someone who can explain it. That's going to destroy him. He's already destroyed. He's been destroying himself and everyone around him for 20 years. Elena opened the door. Maybe the truth can finally let him start healing. She walked out into the hallway, the envelope clutched in her hands, her heart pounding with a mixture of triumph and grief. The truth was finally coming out, but the reckoning was just beginning. Stone was waiting in Training Bay 7 when Elena arrived with the envelope. Did he talk? He did more than talk. She handed him the documents. His father was the traitor. Robert Callahan, logistics officer, compromised through blackmail. Ryan's been protecting the secret for 10 years. Stone opened the envelope, read the first page. His face went through several emotions in rapid succession: shock, anger, and finally something that looked like vindication. 20 years. I've been looking for this answer for 20 years. There's more. Elena's voice was quiet. Callahan is willing to cooperate. Full testimony. He'll turn over the original letters tomorrow. This changes everything. Stone pulled out his phone. Colonel Vance needs to see this immediately. There's something else we need to discuss first. Stone paused. What? Webb. He needs to know the truth. About his brother. About what really happened. Elena met Stone's eyes. And you need to be the one to tell him. Stone's expression hardened. Why me? Because you were there. Because you've been carrying the guilt of that mission for 20 years too. And because Webb will never believe it from anyone else. The silence stretched between them. You're asking me to destroy a man I've known for 30 years. I'm asking you to free him from the lie he's been living, from the guilt he's been carrying for something that wasn't his fault or yours. Elena's voice softened. You both blamed yourselves for Daniel's death. You both blamed the intelligence community, but neither of you was responsible. The only person responsible was Robert Callahan. Stone closed his eyes. For a long moment, he didn't speak. When he opened them again, something had changed in his expression. Resolution, acceptance. You're right. Webb deserves to know. He put away his phone. But not tonight. First we secure the evidence. Get Callahan's formal statement. Make sure this can't be buried again. And then we have the hardest conversation of my life. The next morning came too quickly. Elena had barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the conversation with Callahan, the confession, the documents, the weight of 20 years of secrets finally coming to light. At 0700, NCIS agents arrived on base with a warrant. Callahan was taken into custody for formal questioning. He went without resistance, his shoulders slumped in something that looked almost like relief. Webb watched from the formation line, confusion evident on his face. What the hell is going on? Nobody answered him. At 0900, Colonel Vance convened an emergency meeting. Elena was called to the conference room along with Stone Agent Holbrook and 3 officers she didn't recognize. Captain Reyes, your documentation has been instrumental in exposing a pattern of evaluation fraud that extends back at least 5 years. Vance's voice was formal, but there was warmth underneath it. Additionally, your investigation into the historical Operation Silent Thunder case has produced evidence that resolves a 20-year-old intelligence failure investigation. Thank you, ma'am. Based on Chief Instructor Callahan's cooperation, we now have a complete picture of how mission intelligence was compromised in 2004. Robert Callahan, deceased, has been posthumously identified as the source of the leak. His son, Ryan Callahan, has provided full documentation and will face separate charges for obstruction and evidence tampering. Agent Holbrook leaned forward. We've also identified several other evaluation irregularities across the program. Webb wasn't the only instructor manufacturing failures. This appears to be a systemic problem. What happens now, ma'am? Elena asked. Now we clean house. Vance stood. Senior Chief Webb will be informed of the true circumstances of his brother's death. He will be offered psychological support and the option to retire with full benefits or to face formal proceedings for evaluation fraud. And my assessment. Your assessment is complete, Captain. You've exceeded every standard we have, and you've done it while under systematic sabotage. Vance's expression softened. Effective immediately, you're recommended for assignment to the Joint Special Operations Cognitive Integration Command. Commander Stone will brief you on the details. Elena nodded. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me. You earned this, every piece of it. The meeting adjourned. Stone caught Elena's arm as she was leaving. I'm going to talk to Webb now. Do you want to be there? Elena thought about it. About the man who'd spent 6 weeks trying to destroy her, about the grief and guilt that had driven him, about the truth that would finally set him free or break him completely. No, that's between you and him. She paused. But when it's over, I'd like to see him, if he's willing. I'll ask. Stone walked toward Webb's office. Elena watched him go, then turned and headed for the barracks. Whatever happened next, her part was done. 2 hours later, Elena was packing her gear when a knock came at the door. She opened it. Marcus Webb stood in the hallway. His eyes were red. His shoulders were slumped. He looked like a man who'd just watched everything he believed in crumble to dust. "Captain Reyes." His voice was hoarse, broken. "Senior Chief. Can I—" He stopped, swallowed, started again. "Can I come in?" Elena stepped aside. Webb walked into the room like he wasn't sure his legs would hold him. He sat on the bunk across from hers, the same one where she'd documented every fabricated failure he'd thrown at her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Stone told me everything." Webb's voice cracked. "About Callahan's father. About the blackmail. About—" He couldn't finish. "About how your brother really died." "Yes." Webb's hands were shaking. 20 years. I spent 20 years blaming the wrong people, destroying careers, sabotaging anyone who reminded me of what I thought had happened." He looked up at her. "I sabotaged you because you were the daughter of an intelligence analyst, because I thought people like your father got my brother killed. And now you know the truth. Now I know the truth." Tears were streaming down Webb's face. "Your father tried to save them. He identified the threat. He warned the team. And they ignored him because of arrogance. My arrogance, Stone's arrogance, and because a traitor had already sold them out." Elena sat down across from him, close enough to reach out and touch if she'd wanted to. "My father believed in integration. He believed that operators and analysts working together saved lives. He died trying to prove that. And I spent 2 decades proving him wrong." Webb's voice was barely a whisper. "Every candidate I failed. Every career I destroyed. Every time I convinced myself that keeping branches separate was the answer, I was wrong. I was so wrong." "Yes." "You were." Webb flinched at her directness, but he didn't look away. "I can't undo what I did to you. The fabricated failures, the public humiliation, the trust drill." His jaw tightened. "What Brandt did to you, I ordered that. I told him to push until you broke. I wanted you to fail so badly that I was willing to let him hurt you." "I know." "You know—" Webb stared at her. "And you're still sitting here talking to me." "Why?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Because my father would have wanted me to." Webb's face crumpled. "He believed people could change. He believed that understanding your enemy was the first step to defeating them or redeeming them." Elena's voice softened. "You're not evil, Senior Chief. You're broken. You've been carrying trauma so long it became doctrine. But trauma isn't destiny. I don't know how to be anything else." "Then learn." Elena leaned forward. "You have 30 years of experience. 30 years of knowledge about what works and what doesn't. You could spend the rest of your career teaching people how to integrate effectively, not sabotaging them, but building them up." "They'll never let me near a training program again." "Maybe not right away, but Colonel Vance is offering you a choice. Retirement with benefits or—" Elena paused. "Or cooperation with reform efforts, helping redesign the assessment criteria, making sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else." Webb stared at her like she'd offered him water in a desert. "You'd want me to be part of that, after everything I did. I'd want you to be part of the solution, because you understand the resistance better than anyone. You know why people fear integration. You know what arguments they'll use, what sabotage they'll attempt." Elena met his eyes. Who better to fight that resistance than someone who used to lead it? Webb was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was steadier. Still broken, but with something new underneath it. "Your father, James Reyes. He was the best intelligence analyst I ever worked with. I didn't know that until today. I was too busy blaming him to see how good he really was. He would have liked you, before everything happened." Elena's voice caught. "He believed in giving people second chances." "And you? Do you believe in second chances?" Elena thought about everything she'd been through. The fabricated failures, the isolation, the assault during the trust drill, the 20 years of buried truth about her father's death. She thought about the man sitting in front of her, broken, grieving, facing the collapse of everything he'd believed in. "I believe people can change if they want to badly enough." She stood up, extended her hand. "The question is whether you want to." Webb looked at her hand, then at her face. Slowly he reached out and took it. "I want to try." "Then we start tomorrow." Elena pulled him to his feet. "Because there's a lot of work to do." The formal review board convened at 0800 the next morning. Elena sat on one side of the long conference table. Webb sat across from her, not as an adversary this time, but as a witness. His face was drawn, aged 10 years overnight, but there was something different in his posture, something that looked almost like acceptance. Colonel Vance presided at the head of the table. Agent Holbrook sat to her right with a stack of files. Commander Stone took the chair at the far end, his expression unreadable. "This board is convened to review evidence of systematic evaluation fraud within the Naval Special Warfare Training Assessment Program," Vance began. "Additionally, we will address findings related to the historical Operation Silent Thunder intelligence compromise." She opened the first file. Over the past 6 weeks, Captain Elena Reyes documented 23 instances of fabricated evaluation failures. Each instance has been verified through independent timing data helmet camera footage and witness testimony. The evidence was laid out methodically. Elena's notebook entries, the body camera footage from the trust drill, Callahan's confession and the documents he'd provided, testimony from Morrison Reeves and Lieutenant Chen. Webb listened to each piece of evidence without protest. When Vance asked if he disputed any of the findings, he shook his head. "No, ma'am. It's all accurate." "You acknowledge that you systematically failed Captain Reyes, despite her performance exceeding established standards?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you acknowledge that this pattern of behavior extended to other candidates over a period of at least 5 years?" Webb's jaw tightened. "Yes, ma'am. I failed anyone who represented integration. Anyone who reminded me of—" He stopped, swallowed. "Anyone who reminded me of what I believed caused my brother's death." The room went silent. Vance leaned forward. "Senior Chief Webb, we've received testimony regarding the true circumstances of your brother's death. Evidence indicates that the intelligence failure you've attributed to cross-branch coordination was actually caused by a compromised American officer, Robert Callahan, who provided mission details to hostile forces." Webb's hands clenched on the table. "I know, ma'am. Commander Stone briefed me yesterday." "How do you respond to this information?" For a long moment, Webb didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "I spent 20 years hating the wrong people, blaming analysts like Captain Reyes's father for something they didn't do, building my entire career around a lie." He looked at Elena. "I destroyed careers, ruined lives, turned away good operators because they didn't fit my broken narrative. And Captain Reyes specifically, I targeted her from day one, not because she wasn't capable, she was more capable than half my instructors. I targeted her because she represented everything I was afraid of." Webb's voice cracked. "Because if she succeeded, it meant I was wrong. About integration, about her father, about the reason my brother died." Vance made a note. "The board has reviewed your service record prior to this investigation. 28 years of distinguished service, multiple combat deployments, numerous commendations. This creates a complex picture." "My service record doesn't excuse what I did, ma'am." "No, it doesn't." Vance closed the file. "However, it does factor into our recommendation. The board has 3 options. Option 1, formal court-martial proceedings for evaluation fraud and conduct unbecoming. Option 2, administrative separation with other than honorable discharge. Option 3." She paused. "Option 3 is conditional retention pending psychological evaluation and reassignment to a non-instructional role within the Integration Reform Initiative." Webb's head came up. "Reform Initiative. Commander Stone has proposed a comprehensive review of assessment protocols. The goal is to identify and eliminate systemic biases that allow situations like this to develop. Vance's expression softened slightly. He's specifically requested your participation. Why would he want me involved after everything I've done? Stone spoke for the first time. Because you understand the resistance better than anyone, Marcus. You know why people fear integration. You know what arguments they'll use, what sabotage they'll attempt. And because... He paused. Because I've known you for 30 years. I know the man you were before Somalia. I believe that man is still in there somewhere. Webb stared at his old friend. Something passed between them, decades of shared history, shared trauma, shared guilt. And if I can't find that man, then we'll help you look. Stone's voice was quiet but firm. But you have to choose to try. The silence stretched. Elena watched Webb's face. Watched him wrestle with the decision that would determine the rest of his life. Finally he spoke. Option 3. I'll do whatever it takes to fix what I broke. Vance nodded. So noted. Senior Chief Webb, you are hereby relieved of all instructional duties pending psychological evaluation. Upon clearance, you will be reassigned to the Integration Reform Task Force under Commander Stone's supervision. She turned to Elena. Captain Reyes, the board formally acknowledges that your assessment was compromised by systematic fraud. All fabricated failures are hereby expunged from your record. Your actual performance metrics have been reviewed independently, and you have exceeded SEAL integration standards in every category. Elena felt something release in her chest. Not triumph, something quieter. Validation. Additionally, your investigation into the Operation Silent Thunder case has been instrumental in resolving a 20-year intelligence failure. The families of the 6 men who died will be notified of the true circumstances. Your father's role in attempting to warn the team will be officially recognized. Elena's throat tightened. Thank you, ma'am. There's one more matter. Vance pulled out a final document. Based on your demonstrated capabilities and the recommendation of Commander Stone, you are hereby assigned to the Joint Special Operations Cognitive Integration Command as founding team leader. You will be responsible for developing training protocols for the next generation of cross-branch operators. Team leader, not just participant leader. Ma'am, I'm 20 years old. Age is irrelevant, Captain. Competence is what matters. And you've demonstrated more competence under pressure than officers twice your age. Vance stood. This board is adjourned. Captain Reyes, Commander Stone will brief you on your new assignment. Senior Chief Webb, report to medical for psychological evaluation at 1400. The officers filed out. Stone caught Elena's arm as she was leaving. My office. There's something I need to give you. Stone's office felt different now. The same sparse furniture. The same American flag in the corner. But the atmosphere had shifted from secrecy to openness, from investigation to completion. Stone closed the door and walked to his desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out something wrapped in dark cloth. Elena recognized it immediately. The same bundle he'd shown her during their first private meeting. I told you that you'd have to earn this. Stone unwrapped the cloth, slowly revealing the ceremonial dagger, the Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife that had belonged to his father. You've done more than earn it. He held it out to her. This blade has been carried by 3 generations of special operations commanders. My father, me. And now, he paused. Now it passes to someone who understands what it really represents. Elena took the knife. It was lighter than she expected, perfectly balanced with a blade that had been maintained with obvious care for decades. What does it represent, sir? Integration. The belief that the strongest force isn't any single operator or any single branch. It's all of us working together. Stone's voice was quiet. My father believed that. Your father believed that. I've spent 20 years trying to prove it. And you? He met her eyes. You proved it in 6 weeks. Elena looked at the blade, at the worn grip that showed decades of use, at the weight of history in her hands. I don't know if I deserve this, sir. That's exactly why you do. Stone smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. The people who think they deserve recognition rarely do. The people who doubt themselves are usually the ones who've earned it. A knock interrupted them. Stone opened the door. Webb stood in the hallway, his expression uncertain. "Commander, I wanted to—" He stopped when he saw Elena holding the dagger. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt." "You're not interrupting." Stone stepped aside. "Come in, Marcus." Webb entered slowly, like he wasn't sure he had the right to be there. His eyes kept returning to the dagger in Elena's hands. "Is that—" "My father's blade." "Yes." Stone's voice was even. "I just gave it to Captain Reyes." Webb was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "She deserves it. More than anyone I've ever trained." He looked at Elena. "I came to apologize. Properly. Not the broken rambling I did yesterday, but—" He stopped, started again. "I'm sorry. For everything. For the fabricated failures. For Brant. For using your father's memory as a weapon against you. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it, but I needed you to hear me say it clearly." Webb's jaw tightened. "You're the best operator I've seen in 15 years. Better than most SEALs I've trained, and I almost destroyed you because I couldn't face my own guilt." Elena set the dagger on Stone's desk. "Senior Chief, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "If you'd known the truth about your brother, about Callahan's father, about the real reason the mission failed, would you have spent 20 years sabotaging integration candidates?" Webb considered the question carefully. "No, I would have spent 20 years hunting down the people responsible." He paused. "But I would have been just as broken, just as angry, just as determined to find someone to blame." So the sabotage wasn't really about integration. No, it was about control, about finding an explanation that made sense, about avoiding the randomness of— His voice cracked. "Of losing someone you love for no reason." Elena nodded slowly. "My parents died when I was 8. Embassy bombing in Yemen. I spent years trying to understand why. Looking for patterns, looking for someone to blame. Did you find them?" "I found the truth. But the truth didn't bring them back." Elena met his eyes. "What I learned is that understanding why something happened doesn't make it hurt less. It just helps you stop hurting other people because of your pain." Webb stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or the beginning of hope. "How did you get so wise at 20 years old?" "I had good teachers." Elena picked up the dagger again. "And I learned that silence isn't weakness, it's strength. It's choosing not to react until you have enough information to respond effectively." "Your notebook." "My notebook. 27 days of documentation. Every failure. Every discrepancy. Every lie." She paused. "I could have complained on day 1. Could have filed grievances, demanded reviews, made noise. But noise doesn't change systems. Evidence does." Webb was quiet for a long moment. "That's what I got wrong, all these years. I thought the loudest voice won, the most aggressive approach, the hardest push." He shook his head. "But you won by being quiet, by watching, by letting us make mistakes while you documented everything. I won by refusing to become what you expected me to become. You wanted me to break, to quit, to prove that women couldn't handle the pressure." Elena's voice hardened. "I proved that the pressure was manufactured, that the failures were fabricated, that the only thing I couldn't handle was injustice, and I handled that by exposing it." Stone spoke up. "That's why she's leading the integration reform, Marcus. Not just because she's capable, but because she understands how the system breaks down. And more importantly, she understands how to fix it." Webb looked at his old friend. You're really going to put her in charge, a 20-year-old captain? I'm going to put the most qualified person in charge. Age doesn't determine competence. Stone paused. You taught me that lesson 20 years ago when you were the youngest team leader in SEAL history. Webb's expression flickered. That was different. Was it? You were 23, arrogant, convinced you knew better than everyone else. Stone's voice was gentle but firm. The difference is that Elena has something you didn't have at her age. Humility. The ability to learn from others instead of assuming she already knows everything. The words landed like physical blows. Webb absorbed them without protest. You're right. He turned to Elena. What do you need from me for the reform initiative? What can I do to help fix what I broke? Elena considered the question. I need you to be honest about why you sabotaged candidates, about what fears drove the resistance, about what arguments people will use to fight integration. I can do that. I also need you to talk to the other instructors, the ones who followed your lead. Help them understand that change is coming and that they can be part of it or get out of the way. Webb nodded. Some of them won't listen. Then document their resistance. Names, dates, specific incidents. Elena's voice was steady. We're building a new system, one based on evidence and standards instead of bias and tradition. The people who can't adapt will be left behind. And the people who can adapt will help us build something better. Something that honors the men who died in Yemen, including your brother. Elena paused. Something that proves my father was right all along. Webb's eyes glistened. He was right. I know that now. I knew it then, I think, but I couldn't admit it. Then help me prove it. Not with words, with action. With changed behavior. With a career spent building what you spent 20 years tearing down. The challenge hung in the air. Webb straightened. Something in his posture shifted from defeated to determined. I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes, for as long as it takes. Elena extended her hand. Then we start tomorrow. 0600, Training Bay 7. Webb took her hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive, respectful. I'll be there. After Webb left, Stone sat down heavily in his chair. That was impressive. What was? The way you handled him. No anger, no satisfaction at his suffering. Just, he searched for the word. Justice. Clear-eyed justice. Elena sat across from him. He's not my enemy anymore. He's a resource. A man with 30 years of knowledge about how these systems work and fail. Punishing him might feel good, but using him is more effective. That's exactly the kind of thinking that makes you dangerous. Stone smiled. In the best possible way. I learned from watching you. You could have exposed Webb weeks ago. Could have shut down the sabotage on day one. Instead, you let me build my case while you gathered evidence of your own. I needed to know if you were strong enough to handle what was coming. The investigation, the confrontation, the pressure of leading reform. Stone paused. You exceeded every expectation. I had help. Morrison, Reeves, Lieutenant Chen. They risked their careers to support me. Good leaders inspire loyalty. You inspired it without even trying. Stone leaned forward. Now comes the hard part. What's the hard part? Building something new. It's easy to tear down broken systems. It's much harder to create something better. His expression grew serious. You're going to face resistance, not just from people like Webb, from the entire institutional structure. People who've built their careers on the old ways. People who benefit from keeping things as they are. I know. Do you really understand what you're walking into? Stone's voice hardened. The people who don't want change have power, resources, connections that go all the way to the Pentagon. They're going to fight you every step of the way. Then I'll document every fight, build my case, gather allies. Elena met his eyes. The same strategy that got me through the assessment will get me through the reform. And when they come after you personally, when they dig into your past, your family, your psychology, when they try to destroy you the way Webb tried to destroy you, then I'll survive that too. Elena's voice was quiet but absolute. Because I'm not doing this for recognition or advancement. I'm doing it because 6 men died in Yemen for a lie. Because my father died trying to tell the truth. Because the next generation of operators deserves better than what we have now. Stone studied her face for a long moment. Your father would be proud of you. I hope so. Elena stood. Is there anything else, Commander? One thing. Stone opened another drawer, pulled out a photograph. I've been carrying this for 20 years. It's time you had it. Elena took the photograph. It showed a group of men in tactical gear standing in front of a helicopter. Young faces, confident expressions. The kind of team that believed they were invincible. She recognized 2 of them immediately. A younger Stone, a younger Webb. And in the center of the group, a man she'd only seen in old family photos. Her father, James Reyes. That was taken 2 days before the mission. Stone's voice was quiet. Your father was the one who brought us together, convinced us that operators and analysts working as a team would be unstoppable. Elena traced her father's face with her fingertip. He was smiling, confident, alive. He looks happy. He was. He believed in what we were doing. Believed it so strongly that he volunteered for a dangerous mission to prove it could work. Stone's jaw tightened. And then I ignored his warning and got him killed. You didn't kill him. Robert Callahan did. I could have listened, could have trusted his analysis. Could have. Stone stopped, took a breath. I've spent 20 years trying to earn forgiveness I don't deserve. You don't need forgiveness from me. You need forgiveness from yourself. Elena set the photograph on his desk. And the only way to get that is to finish what he started. Stone looked at the photograph, at the young faces, at the future that had been stolen by betrayal and arrogance. I will. We will. He met her eyes. Together. Elena nodded. Together. She picked up the ceremonial dagger from the desk, felt its weight in her hand, felt the legacy it carried 3 generations of operators who believed that integration made them stronger. 4 generations now. I'll make them proud, she said quietly. All of them. Stone didn't answer. He didn't need to. Some promises didn't require acknowledgement. They just required keeping. Elena walked out of the office with the dagger in her hand and her father's photograph tucked into her pocket. Behind her, she heard Stone pick up his phone. Colonel Vance, we're ready to begin. 6 months changed everything. Elena stood in her new office at Joint Special Operations Cognitive Integration Command, the ceremonial dagger mounted in a display case on her desk. Beside it sat her father's photograph, the one Stone had given her, showing the team that had believed integration could work before betrayal and arrogance tore them apart. Below the dagger, she'd added a small plaque. The words were simple, carried by James Reyes, intelligence analyst, 1998-2004. Earned by Elena Reyes, 2024. Now serves all who follow. Her phone buzzed. A message from Stone. She arrives tomorrow. 0600, Training Bay 7. She's ready. Are you? Elena typed back, always. She set the phone down and looked at the stack of files on her desk. Applications for the new Cognitive Integration Program. 47 candidates from 6 different branches. Rangers, Raiders Force, Recon Air Force PJs, Army Intelligence Navy, EOD. 3 of them were women. The door opened. Webb walked in without knocking, a familiarity they'd developed over the past 6 months of working together on the reform initiative. The new protocols are finalized. He set a folder on her desk. Colonel Vance approved them this morning. Starting next cycle, every assessment will have independent verification, automated timing systems, multiple evaluators, No more single instructor authority over pass-fail decisions. Elena opened the folder. Read the first page. Her eyes caught on one specific section. You included the documentation requirement. Every candidate gets a field notebook, standard issue. They're encouraged to record their observations. Webb's voice was steady now. Not the broken rasp of 6 months ago, but something rebuilt, stronger in the broken places. If anyone tries what I did, the evidence will already be in their hands. The instructors are going to hate that. Some of them already do. Webb almost smiled, but they're learning to adapt. The ones who can't are finding other assignments. Elena closed the folder. How are you doing? Really? Webb was quiet for a moment. The question had weight, they both knew it. 6 months of therapy. 6 months of confronting the guilt he'd carried for 20 years. 6 months of learning to be something other than the man who'd sabotaged careers to protect his own broken narrative. Better. He sat down across from her. Not fixed, but better. The therapist says I'm making progress. Stone says I'm less of an asshole. He paused. I think that's his version of a compliment. It is. Trust me. The new candidate, the one arriving tomorrow. Webb leaned forward. I read her file. Army Intelligence, 19 years old. Youngest person to complete the Advanced Pattern Recognition Program. Maya Torres. She's going to face the same resistance you faced. Maybe worse. The old guard isn't happy about these reforms. Some of them are looking for any excuse to prove integration still doesn't work. Elena nodded. I know. That's why I'm training her myself. You personally. The way Stone trained me. Early mornings. Unofficial sessions. Teaching her not just how to perform, but how to survive the sabotage. Webb's expression shifted. Something that looked almost like admiration. You're not just building a program. You're building a legacy. I'm building what my father believed in. Elena's voice was quiet but firm. What your brother died for, even if we didn't understand it then. What Stone's been fighting for since Yemen. And what I spent 20 years trying to destroy. Yes. Elena met his eyes. And what you're now helping to build. That matters, Webb. The fact that you're here doing this work, that matters. Webb was silent for a long moment. I visited Daniel's grave last week. First time since the funeral. His voice caught. I told him the truth. About what really happened. About Callahan's father. About... He stopped, swallowed. About how I'd been living a lie for 20 years and blaming everyone except myself. What did that feel like? Like dying and being born at the same time. Webb's eyes glistened. Like finally putting down a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. Elena reached across the desk, touched his hand briefly. A gesture of connection, of shared understanding. That's what healing feels like. It hurts. And then it doesn't. Webb nodded slowly. Your father would have been proud of you. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. He would have been proud of you too, the man you're becoming now. Elena pulled her hand back. He believed in second chances. He believed people could change. Even people like me. Especially people like you. Because if you can change after everything, then anyone can. The next morning came cold and clear. Elena arrived at Training Base 7 at 05:45. She'd barely slept, but that wasn't unusual. The weight of what was about to happen kept her mind racing through the night. Stone was already there. He'd aged in the past 6 months, more gray in his hair, more lines around his eyes, but there was something lighter in his posture. Something that looked like peace. Ready? He asked. Ready. She's nervous. I saw her at the barracks this morning, pacing, checking her gear. Stone almost smiled. Reminds me of someone. I wasn't nervous. You were terrified. You just hid it better than most. He paused. That's what made you dangerous. The ability to feel fear and keep moving anyway. Elena didn't argue. He was right. At exactly 0600, a figure approached through the early morning light. Maya Torres was smaller than Elena expected. 5'4", maybe 110 pounds, with dark hair, pulled back tight, and eyes that moved constantly, scanning, assessing, looking for threats before they became obvious. 19 years old, former foster child. Enlisted at 17 because the military was the only family she'd ever known. Genius-level pattern recognition that had caught JSOC's attention before she'd even finished basic training. She stopped in front of Elena, came to attention. "Ma'am, Specialist Maya Torres reporting as ordered." "At ease, Specialist." Torres relaxed barely. Her shoulders stayed tight. Her hands stayed close to her sides. The posture of someone who'd learned early that relaxation was dangerous. "You know why you're here." "The Cognitive Integration Program, ma'am. I was told you could help prepare me." Elena studied her face, saw the determination underneath the nervousness, the steel underneath the uncertainty. "I can do more than prepare you. I can show you how to survive." Torres's eyes flickered. "Survive, ma'am. The assessment you're about to face isn't designed to evaluate your capabilities. It's designed to break you, to prove you don't belong, to validate assumptions that have nothing to do with your actual performance." The words landed hard. Torres absorbed them without flinching. "Then why go through it, ma'am?" "Because someone has to. Because the system doesn't change until enough people prove it's broken and offer something better." Elena reached into her pocket, pulled out a waterproof notebook. "This is for you." Torres took it, turned it over in her hands. "What is it?" "Your most important weapon. More important than any rifle or any tactical skill I'll teach you." Elena's voice hardened. "Document everything. Times, names, discrepancies between your performance and your evaluation. Facts don't need volume, they need precision." Torres opened the notebook. Inside the front cover, Elena had written an inscription. "The strongest weapon is silence used correctly. The second strongest is evidence. The third is a woman who refuses to break." Elena Reyes. Torres read the words. Her jaw tightened. "You went through this. The sabotage, the fabricated failures. 6 weeks of it. 23 documented incidents. A trust drill where an instructor ordered another candidate to assault me." Elena met her eyes. "And I passed anyway. Not by fighting back, by building an evidence case so complete that when the review board finally saw it, they couldn't ignore the truth." "What happened to the people who sabotaged you? The ones who cooperated with reform are still here, helping build something better." Elena paused. "The ones who didn't are gone." Torres processed that. Something shifted in her expression, fear giving way to determination. "What do you need me to do?" Elena walked to the equipment locker, pulled out a modified M4, live ammunition. "I need you to show me what you're really made of. Not the sanitized version you'll perform for the official assessment. The real thing. The operator you can become when no one's holding you back." Torres took the weapon. Her hands moved with the automatic precision of someone who'd trained until the movements lived in muscle memory. "And if I'm not good enough, then we'll find out now when I can still help you improve." Elena's voice softened. "But I've read your file. Your instructors say you're one of the best pattern recognition specialists they've ever trained. Your physical scores are in the top 10%. Your psychological evaluations show exceptional resilience under pressure. Then why did you call me here? Because being good at what you do isn't enough. You need to be undeniable, so good that even fabricated failures can't explain away your competence." Elena moved toward the shoot house. "You have 6 weeks to become that. Let's see where we start." The next 90 minutes pushed Torres to her limits. Close quarters combat, room clearance, hostage scenarios, low-light engagements. Every skill Elena had learned from Stone she passed on to Torres, testing her, teaching her, building her into something stronger. Torres struggled at first. Her movements were precise but hesitant. She second-guessed her decisions, waited for permission instead of acting on instinct. "Stop thinking," Elena called out after Torres's third fumbled room clearance. "You saw the threat. You identified it correctly. Then you hesitated." "I wanted to be sure." "Being sure gets people killed. Trust your training. Trust your instincts." Elena moved beside her. "Do it again. And this time, when you see the target, engage immediately." Torres reset. Tried again. This time, when she entered the room, her weapon came up smoothly. 2 shots. Center mass. Clean engagement. Better. Elena checked the timer. "Your time improved by 4 seconds. Your shot placement was tighter. What changed?" "I stopped asking permission." "Exactly. Your brain already knew what to do. You just had to get out of its way." Torres lowered her weapon. Her breathing was heavy, but there was something new in her eyes. Confidence, maybe, or the beginning of it. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Why are you doing this, training me personally? You're the commander of the entire integration program. You could delegate this to any of your instructors." Elena was quiet for a moment. "Because I remember what it felt like to be in your position. Walking into a world designed to reject me. Facing people who'd already decided I didn't belong before they'd seen me perform." She paused. "I survived because someone believed in me when no one else did. Commander Stone. He trained me in secret when the official assessment was rigged against me. And now you're doing the same for me. I'm passing it forward. The knowledge, the strategies, the understanding that silence isn't weakness, it's strength." Elena met her eyes. "One day when you've proven what you're capable of, you'll do the same for someone else. That's how we change the system. Not all at once, one person at a time." Torres absorbed that. Her expression shifted from student to something more. Partner, maybe. The first link in a chain that would extend far beyond either of them. "I won't let you down, ma'am." "I know you won't. That's why you're here." The official assessment began the following week. Elena watched from a distance as Torres faced the same gauntlet she'd survived 6 months earlier. The obstacle course, the combat drills, the tactical evaluations designed to test every aspect of operational capability. The resistance was subtler. Now the new protocols made blatant sabotage harder, but it was still there. Instructors who marked Torres harder than other candidates. Evaluators who found flaws that didn't exist. The accumulated weight of institutional bias pressing down on a 19-year-old woman who represented everything the old guard feared. But Torres had something Elena hadn't had at the start, a mentor who'd been through it. A notebook filling with documentation. And the knowledge that she wasn't fighting alone. Week 2 brought the first confrontation. Chief Instructor Davis, one of the holdovers from Webb's era, called Torres out during a tactical planning session. "Your route analysis is flawed, specialist. You're relying too heavily on pattern recognition and not enough on direct intelligence." Torres kept her voice level. "Chief, my analysis identified 3 potential ambush points based on historical engagement data. The direct intelligence only confirmed one of them." "Are you questioning my assessment?" "I'm presenting my methodology, Chief, as instructed by the training protocols." Davis's face reddened. "Your methodology shows exactly why integration doesn't work. Analysts overthink everything. Operators need to trust their instincts, not spreadsheets." "With respect, Chief, my instincts are informed by data. The two aren't mutually exclusive." The exchange was heated. Other candidates watched, waiting to see how it would end. Davis made a note on his clipboard. "Marked for inadequate operational mindset. Report to remedial training at 1800. Torres didn't argue. She just nodded, walked back to her position, and pulled out her notebook. "Day 12, she wrote. Tactical planning session. Analysis identified 3 ambush points versus 1 from direct intel. Marked, inadequate operational mindset. No regulation violation cited. Witness PO2 Hartley SGT Mendez." That night, she found Elena waiting at Training Bay 7. "I heard what happened," Elena said. "Davis. He doesn't like me." Torres's voice was tired but steady. "Doesn't like what I represent. He's scared of what you represent. There's a difference." Elena took the notebook, read the entry, nodded. "Good documentation. Specific. Factual. No emotional language." I wanted to yell at him. Tell him his direct intelligence only caught 33% of the threats, while my analysis caught 100%. "But you didn't." "No. I documented and walked away." Torres met Elena's eyes. "The way you taught me." That restraint is harder than any physical challenge you'll face. The ability to be right and not need to prove it immediately. Elena handed back the notebook. "How many entries so far?" 7 incidents, 3 from Davis, 2 from Instructor Paulson, 2 from the physical assessment evaluators. "And your actual performance?" "Top 5 in every category, top 3 in pattern recognition and tactical analysis." Torres paused. "But my evaluation file shows me barely passing." "Which means when the review board sees the discrepancy between your documentation and the official evaluations, they'll have questions." Elena smiled. "You're building your case exactly the way I built mine." The weeks that followed tested everything Torres had learned. Week 3 brought the combat stress gauntlet. She completed it in 7 minutes, 41 seconds, faster than 80% of the candidates, and was marked for overpace, just as Elena had been. Week 4 brought the CQB assessment. 12 targets, 0 civilian casualties. Perfect shot placement, marked for hesitation under pressure because she'd confirmed a target before engaging. Week 5 brought the weapons retention drill. Torres was paired with a candidate twice her size who'd been given special instructions by Davis. But she'd been trained for this by Elena by Stone, by the accumulated wisdom of everyone who'd survived this gauntlet before her. When the candidate attacked Torres, executed a textbook redirect. Clean. Professional. Exactly per protocol. Davis tried to claim she'd escalated, but 3 other candidates had been documenting along with Torres. The body camera she wore, the same model Elena had used, captured everything. "You're learning," Elena told her that night. "Not just how to fight, how to build an evidence case while you're fighting." "It's exhausting." Torres's voice was raw. "Performing at the highest level while simultaneously documenting every attempt to sabotage that performance." "I know. I did it for 6 weeks." "How did you keep going?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "I thought about my father. About the truth he died trying to tell. About the 6 men whose families never knew why they really died." Her voice hardened. "I thought about the next person who would walk into this program after me. The young woman who would face the same resistance, the same sabotage, the same manufactured failures. Me. You. Or someone like you. Someone who deserved better than what the system was designed to give her." Elena met Torres's eyes. "Every time I wanted to quit, I reminded myself that quitting meant letting them win, meant proving their narrative right, meant leaving the next generation to face the same fight without anyone to show them how to survive." Torres absorbed that. Something settled in her expression, determination crystallizing into something stronger. "I'm not going to quit." "I know you're not. That's why I chose you." The final assessment came on day 42. Torres ran the comprehensive evaluation infiltration combat intelligence gathering extraction with the precision of someone who'd spent 6 weeks being tested and 6 weeks learning how to prove her worth beyond any possible doubt. Her time was 8 minutes 14 seconds. Top 3 in the entire cycle. Her tactical analysis identified 2 additional threats that the standard intelligence had missed, threats that in a real operation could have cost lives. Her documentation notebook contained 43 entries of evaluation irregularities. When the review board convened, Elena was there. Stone was there. Webb was there, Not as an evaluator, but as a witness to the system he'd helped create and the system he was now helping to fix. Colonel Vance reviewed the evidence, the documented discrepancies, the body camera footage, the witness statements from candidates who'd chosen to support Torres despite the professional risk. Specialist Torres, Vance said, "Your documented performance exceeds every standard we have. Your evaluation file contains multiple irregularities that this board cannot ignore." She paused. "You've demonstrated exactly what this program was designed to prove, that competence transcends branch, gender, and age." Torres stood at attention. Her face was composed, but Elena could see the emotion underneath the relief and pride and exhaustion of someone who'd fought a war and won. "Effective immediately, you are recommended for assignment to the Joint Special Operations Cognitive Integration Command. Captain Reyes will serve as your direct supervisor and mentor." The words hung in the air. Elena stepped forward, extended her hand. "Welcome to the team, specialist." Torres took her hand. Her grip was firm, confident, the grip of someone who'd proven herself and knew it. "Thank you, ma'am, for everything." "Don't thank me yet. The real work is just beginning." Later that evening, Elena stood at the memorial wall near the command building. The names of fallen operators were etched in black granite, hundreds of them, men and women who'd given everything for something they believed in. Her father's name wasn't there. He'd been a civilian, not a service member. But his legacy was carved into every piece of what she'd built. Torres found her there, standing alone in the fading light. "Ma'am." Elena didn't turn around. "I come here sometimes, to remember why we do this." Torres moved to stand beside her, read some of the names, absorbed the weight of sacrifice they represented. "Your father believed in integration. He died for it. Died trying to tell a truth that no one wanted to hear." Elena touched the wall. 20 years later, we're finally proving he was right. Not just proving it, building on it. Torres paused. "The notebook, the documentation strategy, the parallel training. You've created a system that protects people like me from what happened to you. The system isn't perfect yet. There are still people who resist. Still instructors who believe that women don't belong. Still candidates who'll face the same sabotage we faced." Elena turned to face her. "That's why we keep building, keep training, keep passing the knowledge forward. Like you passed it to me. Like I passed it to you. And like you'll pass it to someone else when the time comes." Torres was quiet for a moment. "There's a candidate in the next cycle, Private Jessica Huang, Army Intelligence, 18 years old. Her file says she's exceptional at behavioral analysis. I've read her application. She's going to face resistance, the same kind I faced, the same kind you faced." Elena smiled. "Then you'd better be ready to teach her what I taught you." Torres straightened. "I will be." "Good." Elena pulled the ceremonial dagger from her belt she'd taken to carrying it as Stone had carried it, as his father had carried it before him. "Because this isn't about you and me. It's about everyone who comes after us. Every woman who walks into this program and refuses to break. Every operator who proves that competence matters more than gender or age or branch." She held the dagger between them. "One day this will pass to you, and then to someone you've trained, and then to someone they've trained, until the day when sabotage isn't possible anymore because the system won't allow it." Torres looked at the blade, at the worn grip that carried decades of history. "How will we know when we've won?" Elena's answer came without hesitation. "When no one has to prove it anymore. When integration isn't experimental, it's just how things are done. When a woman can walk into special operations training and be judged only by her performance, not by assumptions about what she can't do. That could take years, decades. Then we fight for decades." Elena sheathed the dagger. "My father fought for what he believed in until the day he died. Stone has fought for 30 years. Webb is fighting now to undo the damage he caused." She met Torres's eyes. "This is our fight now, and we don't stop until it's finished." Torres nodded slowly. "I understand. I know you do." That's why you're here." They stood together in silence. Two women who'd refused to break, looking at a wall that honored those who'd given everything. The wind carried the sound of the flag snapping against its pole. The same flag that had witnessed decades of men who believed they defined excellence. The same flag that would witness generations of women proving them wrong. "Ma'am." Torres's voice was quiet. "Yes. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." Elena didn't answer immediately. She thought about Stone, who'd believed in her. About Webb, who'd tried to destroy her and was now helping to build what she'd created. About her father, who'd died believing that integration would make them all stronger. "That's what we do," she finally said. "We believe in each other, even when the system doesn't. Even when the evidence says we shouldn't. Even when believing seems impossible." She turned away from the memorial, started walking toward the command building. "Now come on, we have work to do." Torres fell into step beside her. Behind them, the names on the wall stood silent witness to sacrifice and hope. Above them, the flag caught the last light of day, and ahead of them, the future waited, uncertain, challenging, but no longer impossible. Because silence was never weakness. Evidence was never optional. And the women who refused to break would keep building until breaking them became impossible. That was the legacy. That was the promise. And that was the truth that no amount of sabotage could ever destroy.